Do it to it.
Alright, ready?
Good evening. Happy Thursday, ladies and gentlemen, people who are listening to this podcast and who will be hopefully in the future. Today, Taylor and I are going to be talking and starting and recording episode 3, which is going to be focused on mental health. Because just in case you're a new listener, to remind you guys, the triad of health involves fitness, nutrition, and mental health. If you have all 3 of those in check, then your overall health is going to be on point, and you're going to just have your life's going to be way more enjoyable because you're not dealing with an illness or some other suffering from another struggle. So this week's episode is going to be on mental health. Episode 1 is fitness. Episode 2 is nutrition. Episode 3 is all about mental health. And we'll just get right into it, man. So, what up, dude?
What's going on?
I just want to clarify, when we say mental health, I think most people might initially think all we're going to do is talk about the mental health diagnoses, people with depression, severe anxiety, panic attacks, and stuff like, bipolar and stuff like that. We will talk about that specifically on another episode, but for now, we're going to just, mental health isn't just talking about people who have a legit diagnosis and who are taking medication, stuff like that, or who are going to treatment and having, psychologists. It also involves just the everyday person who has too much stress. And what's too much stress? We can get into that, but possibly they have, lots of fear during their day. They don't speak up for themselves. They get super angry and pissed off really easily over just stuff that doesn't matter.
Traffic.
Yeah, and that's kind of, that's what we'll get into on that subject is I was talking about this with my barber. I got a fresh cut today, looking chill. But I was talking to my barber about, he was talking about traffic here and he asked me about traffic in California. And then I eventually said, literally, well, yeah, it doesn't compare at all. Are you kidding me? You can't avoid the traffic in California. I lived in Southern California for almost 7 years, but
people in San Diego are animals.
Yeah, San Diego, and the farther north you go to LA, it's just ridiculous. And then if you go farther south by the border, my front door was within 15 minutes of Mexico for 7 years. So if you get the closer and closer you get to the border, it gets even worse. But the people, 99.9% of the people who get really frustrated and annoyed and pissed off at it, is that ever going to do anything to change the traffic? When you get angry or pissed off or get offended if someone cuts you off, is that going to ever just magically clear up the traffic and do anything for you besides just make you suffer? No. Okay. Problem solved. Don't do it. I always tell myself in my head, I even recorded a couple of videos because, in California, there's sitting traffic. You're literally just sitting in the same spot for a long period of time or going a mile per hour. I recorded a video one time. My goal is to be the happiest damn person on this entire highway. And as I was recording it, I was waving at people sarcastically as I was going by them, oh, hey, man,
Hey.
And they were giving these dirty looks.
If you're stuck in traffic in California,
Shit.
why don't you throw on some Triad Health podcast?
Oh! That was a very sleek plug there, dude.
Boom. Turn your car into an education center.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, we're gonna start off. Taylor and I are gonna start off talking about our history with mental health, and like I said again, when we say mental health, it's just our mental and emotional well-being. I think mental health can be sometimes skewed into people only thinking it's talking about, depression, schizophrenia, all that kind of stuff, bipolar, maybe body dysmorphia, eating disorders, that kind of stuff. But the majority of it, and the majority of humans, just have too much stress in their life. They get anxious and frustrated over things that they can't control and doesn't really matter. And
we're all, we're all culprits of that. We all experience that. Jack and I are no exception to that.
Yeah, we all experience that.
Absolutely.
The cool part is it doesn't need to keep happening forever to the extreme that it is. I'll just be firsthand to say, I am not a superhuman alien from another galaxy. It's weird. He doesn't have a belly button. It's super weird. No, I'm kidding. But it's possible. I mean, I live this way now.
Nipple, dude.
I thought you had 3. I had 3. Fuck. I live this way now where, it's a really great feeling to wake up in the morning and just not be anxious or stressed because I just know whatever happens during the day, I'll be able to deal with it joyfully and peacefully. And that's not just a cool phrase to say on an episode of a podcast. That's just the way I am now. The interesting thing though is for 22 to 23 years of my life, I'm 25 now, just like Taylor, it definitely wasn't that way at all. I mean, the littlest things would ruin my day, my week, my month, my year, and a lot of times big things too. I've experienced a lot of, adversity just like Taylor and everyone else. But the point is, anyone is capable of living a happy, joyful, peaceful life. I mean, if we think about it, the amount of people who just take life too seriously is a real shame. I took everything as serious as a heart attack, no matter what it was, because at the end of the day, it's kind of funny, because I don't know if you know this, Taylor, but do we live forever?
It's modern science.
Hey, if you listen to Try Health more, you're going to live to 200.
No.
Yeah, I mean, come on. So you come into this world alone and with nothing, not even a shirt on your back. And guess what? You're going to leave this world with nothing. It doesn't do anything to bury yourself with $5 million in cash over your body. You can't take it with you. So the things that, you might be stressing about right now, today, on Thursday, December 19th, I would suggest asking yourself, is this really going to matter in 5 days, 5 months, or 5 years? And if it doesn't matter over a 5-year period, drop it, dude. And ma'am, guy, girl,
guys and gals,
it's just not worth your time and energy. So, I can go on and on, keep riffing, but Taylor, do you want to start kind of with your little trajectory of kind of how your experience with your mental and emotional well-being, mental health, whatever you want to call it, from as long as you can remember until now?
Yeah, absolutely. So I mean, when you say I've overcome adversity, it's nothing compared to what Jack has overcome.
Hey, you know what though? I always tell people this. I appreciate that. That's cool. But I give speeches in front of tons of different audiences, and I always make it clear, I don't think my problems outweigh anyone else's. The stuff I've been through, I don't think, because everyone handles stuff differently. I'm not going to name any names obviously, but I saw someone I know who had like a 1-hour surgery yesterday or 2 days ago, and it was just Instagram story after Instagram story about how much pain and how struggling, and she's so, her life's over. Hey, I get it. Everyone handles stuff differently, but from my viewpoint watching it, an hour-long surgery is like just a party for me.
Right.
It's like I'm so used to it by now. So that's my point, is everyone deals with stuff differently. It's not just a cookie cutter mentality towards life events and circumstances. So, I might have been through, by some people, way more tough shit or more adversity than someone else, but I still don't think it outweighs anyone.
Right.
So, don't cut yourself short. I mean,
yeah.
I mean, everyone has something. The thing is, so many people tell me, I just hope, this bad time, it's been like 3 years straight with just stuff happening one after another. I just hope it ends. Well, guess what? This is called life. Exactly. No one is going to have a perfectly smooth sailing month, let alone maybe even week.
Absolutely.
Something always is going to happen. And adversity can affect your mental health in many different ways, and it depends on the type of adversity. Adversity and just trauma is defined as a difficulty or misfortune. So Taylor spilling this water on my computer, that's considered a difficulty, that's considered adversity. But that level of adversity compared to almost dying, there's different extremes. Just like in sports, there's different levels.
Yeah.
There's amateur sports, semi-pro, there's professionals, and even in the and I know there's a bunch of NBA games now, even the NBA, there's people who never play a second in the NBA. They're at the bench their whole career, but they're still savages.
Speaking of sports, anybody out there that's gotten a major injury, I mean, you really take for granted that you can walk around fine or deadlift, or whatever activity you're doing, or throw a ball. You really take that for granted until you get an injury and you can't do that anymore, or you can't do it for 4 months, 6 months, whatever.
That's the beauty of it, just like you said, is people, adversity can be really great, because if you have it help you make you better instead of bitter, you can really use it to your advantage. just like you said, if you break your foot tomorrow, God forbid, and I hope you don't, but then you're on crutches for 6 months because it's like a really bad break or something, you're definitely going to have a different perspective
Yeah.
on just the ability to walk every day pain-free and to walk in general.
You know
Whereas
what's-
if it never happened, you'd probably be complaining about like a hole in your a hole in your shoes. Like, what? So,
Yeah.
very good point.
You know what I find super motivational is when I see guys like break an arm or a leg and they still get into the gym and they do stuff where they're say somebody breaks a leg and I see them doing seated dumbbell presses and stuff like they're still getting after it. I love guys like that. I mean, of course, not everybody's gonna be like that, and that's
But everyone can.
it's true.
You
Yeah,
can
everybody
learn,
can't
it's a
have
skill.
killer mindset.
Mental toughness, mental fitness, mind fitness,
Mhm.
whatever you want to call it, it's a skill. No one's born with
Exactly.
it. You
No
learn it
one's
along
born
the
with
way.
Yeah.
I was a mental pansy when
Yeah.
I was a kid, and
Me
through,
too.
through everyone is a kid. Think about how many kids go to a first grade classroom. A kid might have a little bruise, and he's gonna be crying for 5 hours. He's gonna be limping. It's a bruise the size of a penny,
Yeah.
But then the older he gets, the more hardened his mindset gets in a good way, and then it gets to a certain point where it might plateau. But then more adversity and more trauma happens. You just grow from it. So that's really cool. That's a really good point.
Man, I remember the first time I think it was like 7th or 8th grade when I ran the mile. I always did the mile in PE.
Yeah.
And I was always looking at all the guys, like all these, all the popular people in the grade,
Thank you. I know.
whatever. Yeah. Jack over here.
I was just
But no, I was always, looking at other people that were, soccer players and, the popular high school kids. I'm not talking about Jack here. I'm talking about him.
sorry.
Yeah,
I'm so strong.
So I always look at those people and I'm like, I'll never be able to run a mile like that. I'll never be able to run a good mile. I don't know what happened, but it clicked and I was like, I can run a fucking mile. Shit. And I ended up running one of the fastest mile times in 8th grade just based on my own will
Yeah.
to try. I wasn't in good shape at all in 7th or 8th grade.
See, I hit my fist, and look at this, our camera. I'm so strong. It just did it when I hit my fist.
But anyways, yeah. So I mean, as we were saying, it's all about mindset. It's all about, nobody's born with that.
Exactly. And did you ever have the thought cross your mind? Because I know growing up in sports, I would always play. I was blessed with good enough athletic ability where I wouldn't necessarily always play with kids my age. I mean, even the soccer teams I was on, the sports teams I was on growing up, we'd always do tournaments against older teams.
Yeah.
And in high school, when you're a freshman playing on varsity with seniors, guys who have beards,
Yeah.
and I can't even grow a peach fuzz, what really changed my mindset, my mental and emotional well-being, was I realized they're a human being just like me. They put their pants on one leg at a time unless you're super fucking
Right.
creepy ninja and you do it both. But the point is, like, there's nothing that makes them way more capable to achieve things than me, in a sense, to a certain sense, Obviously, people who are at the very high level, like gymnasts, I could never do what these Olympians do in gymnastics. But when it comes to something, but when it comes to something like running, or I was a fairly good athlete and soccer player, you got to have confidence. Don't sell yourself short. There's a difference between confidence and cockiness.
Absolutely.
Cockiness is when you tell other people how great you are. Confidence is when you let your action do the talking.
Exactly.
But yeah, there are other and you guys listening to this might think, gosh, how can I eat as healthy as Taylor or work out as much as we do, or have the mental fortitude that we have on a daily
It takes
basis?
time, man.
Yes, it takes
It
time.
takes time. It takes a long time.
But also, I don't want that to discourage you, because we're nothing special. We just made a commitment and we had discipline.
Right.
Just like our good old dude Jocko Willink. We don't know him, but
Yeah,
we look up to him a little bit.
Absolutely.
Discipline equals freedom. So
Yeah, but it takes anything you do in life takes time. Anything you're interested in, anything you like doing. I've been working out for well over a decade, and before that, I played a host of sports as a kid. So I mean, things take time, and you gotta enjoy the process. Everybody always says that, enjoy the process, but it's really true, because how happy would you be if you had everything right now? You really wouldn't be that happy, because you didn't put any time in to achieve anything. If your interests, whatever your interests are, but it's going to take time to develop those. I don't care if you're LeBron James or whatever, you know.
I agree. That's kind of what we said on the fitness and nutritional episode was no one's amazing and really good at something the first time they do it. So we gave some insights on fitness for beginners, what they can start doing now. It's going to be pretty, yeah, but you might not be that good at it, or it's going to be pretty miserable and painful because you're just not in great physical shape. But guess what? No one is on their first time.
Exactly.
You know, and same with diet. The first time I decided to kind of buckle down and really try not to eat Little Debbie's all day, it wasn't an automatic switch that was permanent and easy.
Yeah.
Just like with mental health and mindset, like today. You know, like I said, and Taylor, I'm sure will say a little bit similar stuff when he talks about his kind of history, but I was a different person from 1994, September 20th, when I was born, to 22 years old, compared to 22 years old until now. I turned 25 this past September. Completely different person.
I'm a totally different person than I was when I was 23. Even.
And in a good way, as we're saying.
In a good way, yeah, absolutely.
Because a lot of people, you know, your personality creates your personal reality. And if Taylor would have met me, well, Taylor's known me this whole time, but like people who have met me in the last couple of years, they only see me how I am in the last couple of years. But if they would have met me when I was 15, they would be like, dude, what happened?
Yeah.
Like, what? You know? So, anyways, Taylor, do you want to get into a little bit, you know, say as much as you want, man. You can give all your deep, dark secrets.
I'm not going to call anybody out or anything, because I'm sure... You know,
oh, come on, dude.
No, I mean, as far as I haven't conquered, I guess we all conquer adversity to some degree. And I mean, my life, I grew up, parents divorced.
How old were you?
I mean, my parents have been divorced since I was a baby.
Oh, so you probably comprehend. Okay.
Yeah, but you know, traveling back and forth between households, you got, you know, there's some beef between parents. I won't get into that, but you know, you grow up with doubts about yourself and lack of self-confidence, and that I feel that can really resonate with a lot of people. You know, I was a really shy kid. I was very introverted. I still am introverted. I'm a very observational type person. I really do love people though. But yeah, it's been hard for me to kind of like break out of my shell. And I think a lot of people can really relate to that.
Did you have a shell because when you were growing up, it was a dynamic, you were questioning why is this happening, going from one parent to the next,
Sure,
back and forth, or did you maybe, because I know some friends who've had parents who were divorced when they were really young, and they thought they weren't good enough because the parents didn't stick together for them type of thing, like they skewed it into really negative.
There's a lot of things that happen, especially in the developing brain. For me, I didn't have a whole lot of issues. I'm super fortunate and lucky to have found something I'm really interested in, and I mean both of us have.
Yeah.
You've obviously had to overcome so much, but something good has come out of that.
Yeah, and even during the darkest times of my life, your life, and everyone's life, I think it is so important to find at least one reason to get out of bed.
Yeah.
My life during my deepest, darkest struggles with my mental and emotional health and just how much I hated myself and couldn't even look at myself in the mirror started to slowly take a turn for the better when I had a reason, a purpose to get out of bed, because I started doing this stuff with the charity foundation, and I'm like, all right, well, if I don't get out of bed, then I'm not going to, raise donations for these kids dying of, the water they're drinking in Africa. So, although if I didn't have that though, if I don't get out of bed, no one's life is going to suffer or change, like whatever, So I think it's super important to find, I think it was Will Smith who said this one time, a long time ago, the difference between someone who is depressed and someone who is happy is the depressed person doesn't have to wake up. If they don't wake up, no one's lives are going to suffer, no one's going to need them. A happy person wakes up because they have a purpose to fulfill that day.
Yeah.
So, go ahead.
That's great. So, grew up, my parents were divorced, so that, caused a lot of issues with self-confidence and things along those lines that I won't get into too much detail with. But fortunately, I found my passion, my interests now, and that's really helped me. It's sort of guided me. That's always been there in my life through hard times. I guess it probably comes as a little bit of a shocker to some people, but I have been through, shockers, pretty low lows. I have been suicidal at times. I think a lot of people have. and this is not like a pity me episode or anything.
Yeah, no,
Not
even
at
for
all.
me, yeah.
Not at all. We just want to tell you things like they are. You know, we're being real. I did have a little bit of a drinking problem, probably a few years ago. Thankfully, I've really resolved that. I rarely ever drink anymore.
He gets dehydrated all the time, doesn't drink anything. It's
Exactly.
crazy.
I don't drink anything.
What the hell, dude?
But anyways, so growing up in
I think that's powerful to share though, because
yeah,
it's natural for any human who's going through and what they're experiencing as tough times. The amount of people I've heard over my 2-year career of speaking that I never would have guessed in a million years they would have said stuff like that. But there's been multiple people who said, like, when things got really tight with money, or
Yeah.
my work schedule was so crazy I got no time to even breathe.
right.
A guy told me a year ago after a speech, he's like, yeah, I'm not gonna lie, I looked out my apartment window and just that thought popped in my mind, this could all end if I just
Yeah.
you know
A lot of people think like that, unfortunately.
yeah,
and
it's not like human nature, but it's almost a normal thing, because when you feel so overwhelmed and it's been a long period of time of feeling overwhelmed and stressed,
yeah.
the only way out is to end it all. But guess what? That's a permanent solution to a temporary problem.
Right.
It's very cliche, but it's 100% a fact. Go ahead.
So in high school, super quiet, afraid to talk to girls, I had my buddies I hung out with and whatnot, but really introverted, and you really struggle with. I think a lot of people in high school really struggle with
Middle school too.
middle
everything.
school. Of course, your upbringing in general. I think a lot of people really struggle to find out who they are, and of course, you got a lot of kids in high school that think they know who they are. Kids that are pulling up the stock market on their phones and shit like that.
I remember that.
Checking the stocks, like, hey man, it's gonna be okay. You're in high school. Don't worry about your stocks right now, bro. But
Is that BMW on the school parking lot? Did your parents buy that for you? Oh, okay, yeah, okay, never mind. All right, you're cool. I forgot.
didn't earn that. No.
Which is funny because that
doesn't
happened in
matter.
high school. Go ahead.
But so you grow up with lack of self-confidence and things along those lines. Thankfully, like I said, I found fitness at a pretty early age. I grew up doing sports, which one thing I want to talk about was I fucking hate how unfair young kids' sports are. Did you ever get this? So
Explain.
okay, I'm not
I'll
obviously
probably agree.
I'm obviously not like 7 feet tall, so I sucked dick at basketball, but I really tried. But obviously you get those parents that are so crazy about their kids doing basketball, and they're trying to live through their kids' lives, what I'm
Vicariously
saying?
through
Trying to
them.
live vicariously through their children. And I felt like growing up, I hated sports. They really helped shape who I am now.
Did you hate it because of how serious the people around you took it?
Yeah, I
Like
really
the
took it
parents?
so seriously around me. The parents, they're like so fucking hard on their kids to win the game or whatnot, and nobody would pass them the ball in basketball. And but looking back on it, sports really helped me to grow as a person. They helped me kind of find out what I was interested in.
And would you say what's important almost, or was there moments in time where you're like, oh yeah, it's serious shit, like I gotta win, otherwise my life is over, or you're always just like, what is going on here?
No, I was
We're
never
playing a game.
I was never ultra competitive because
Okay.
I played a lot of basketball and baseball. I fucking hated those sports, man, and I still do.
But
It's
guess
boring.
the
But
moving
anyways.
aspect was probably big for you,
I'm
right?
joking. Yeah, movement aspect was good.
Okay.
When I did swimming though, I got a little bit of a competitive edge. I didn't notice it back then, but I knew that I was a little bit competitive. I had that competition in me, but I knew I didn't like doing I knew I didn't really like swim team. I knew I didn't really like baseball and basketball and soccer and stuff like that. But
Did you notice, even though you weren't in love with the actual sport, did you notice post practice or game or swim meet that you felt better at all? The
Yeah,
movement
I did.
part of you? Because for
Absolutely.
me, I did so many sports growing up for longer than I wanted to, because my mom and dad just wanted me to keep doing it.
Yeah, me too.
But I still, regardless of how much I hated waking up at 6 a.m. to go to swim practice every summer, after the practice was over, I felt like I was flying, dude. Just because the endorphin release in the chemical release in your brain just from movement.
Totally.
It's like the cliche runner's high, and it's cliche, but it's also true. Like the runner's high is a real thing. So did you ever
you
recognize that?
you don't make those connections as a kid necessarily, but yeah, you do feel good. You feel a sense of like, that swim competition's over. Or in high school, I started doing Taekwondo, which I really enjoyed for the duration that I did it. Didn't do it for very long, but I really enjoyed it. And every time you say like you test for a belt or something like that, and you get it done, you're like, sense of accomplishment, right? So I think a lot of people don't recognize that at that time, obviously. I didn't. But that's really important to developing yourself as a person, I feel like.
100%. So once you got to high school and you found you really resonated with movement, fitness, health in general.
Yeah.
How was that like? How were you before? You know what I mean? Like, was your mental and emotional health and just your overall mindset on a day-to-day basis, was it drastically different once you really got that passion for it, or were you like pretty just like
Once I got the passion for fitness and fitness, like weightlifting and stuff like that, that's when I really started to realize that like I have an actual passion here and I can turn this into something and I really enjoy this. And then it's always been there. I've had other struggles since then, emotionally, and stuff like that, as people do, of course.
Yeah, like you and I were talking about just before we started recording. Do you know of anyone who's had a just smooth sailing perfect year in their entire life?
Not at all. Like, every year is
stuff
different.
Happens. It's called life.
I feel like every year for me, it gets better, and that's just because obviously like this year has been great. We started this podcast. It's something I've been wanting to do. I'm really following my passion to a T. I don't want to work at a shit job the rest of my life.
Right, right. Do you think it's part of because you're just getting more emotionally and mentally mature, or do you think it's just learning from your mistakes, or because I always tell people you can either let stuff that happens you think is bad, adversity or whatever,
right,
make you better or bitter. Because people who break their leg, that can lead them down a very nasty, dark spiral.
Absolutely, it can.
Or the person can grow from it and just be so grateful for what they already have. And once it heals, they just hit the ground running. Do you think it's a combination of like all those? Or, you know what I'm saying? Like, I don't know. I do know. I just don't know how to verbalize.
Totally. Yeah, totally. I was just thinking about this. So I was thinking about... I guess an injury I got a couple years ago, and it was just me being stupid. I'm gonna be honest right now. It was me being stupid, working out way too much. I was trying to,
we used to do like 3 days.
Yeah, we used to do like 3 a day. It was stupid stuff. It's like, that's not good for longevity or anything like that. But
for the immediate results,
I really fucked my back up for quite a while, for probably at least 6 months or so, and it basically felt like a knife getting shoved into the base of my spine anytime I pick something up off the floor. And I just remember like after that, I just kind of like, I hated Olympic weightlifting for quite a while. Like I just hated it. I was like, fuck this is stupid. Which it's not stupid. It's actually beautiful. I love Olympic weightlifting. It's a beautiful sport. It's just not for me personally. But
especially when you overdo it. Yeah.
Thinking back on that,
you overdo it.
It gave me a real appreciation for taking care of my body. It actually helped me see that like, hey man, you're doing too much. You need to slow the fuck down and pay attention to your recovery and your health. And I feel like, if you can look back on things that happened to you, if you can really look back and say, how did that affect me? And how did that, push me to be who I am today? If that pushed you to if that helped you become a better person, that's really what you want. You want to look at things objectively. That injury, that little setback that I had, I hated it at the time. I was like, fuck this is stupid, I'm angry. But now I look back on it and I'm like, wow, I'm a better person. I'm a way better person. You hear that a lot. People talking about injuries and stuff like that. You hear that a lot, how it helped make them a better person. So
did that come upon just you through your own thought process, or did someone in your life like help you realize that, like, or help you look back on it objectively? You know what I mean? Or do you just kind of think? Because for me, it just came kind of just through my own thought process and naturally. Because for me, I thought about like, gosh, there's got to be a better way to deal with shit that goes wrong.
Exactly.
So did you have someone in your life say like, hey dude, look back on this, or was it just kind of through your own living experience, like, we're actually gonna we just pause it real quick because after 30 minutes it keeps going. While Taylor starts the new recording, I'll just sit here and flex. All right.
So yeah, I can't really point to any one specific thing.
Okay.
But
you just kind of thought, eventually through the years, you kind of realized, like, oh,
Yeah,
Okay.
I've always been a huge fan of, I guess this isn't the fitness episode, but I've always been a huge fan of really periodizing what you're doing, especially in the gym, because I think people can get really burnt out on things.
I think you can relate that to anything.
You can relate that to anything
Nutrition.
that you do.
You
Yeah,
can relate
absolutely.
that to what your mindset's like towards certain things on a daily basis.
Yeah,
Too much of anything is just like, wow, man.
keep your discipline,
Yeah.
but change some things. Take some things out. Try something different, And yeah, obviously, I'm not a professional athlete. Professional athletes, like if you're an MMA fighter and you tear an ACL, I mean, that sucks ass because
That's your
you need,
livelihood,
right. You need to feed your family and whatnot.
Even if you're super rich, that's still what you do for a living, and not to be able to do that, it's gotta suck a little bit,
Absolutely, but mindset, how you look at
Exactly. See, I say that, and immediately I just thought, well, it doesn't have to suck. I mean, it's just your attitude just sucks. That's the thing.
Yeah.
It's just so
There's
crazy.
one more thing
We
I
can
wanna
go
say.
down a rabbit hole.
One more thing I want to say before I'm going to let Jack just riff for a while is I look back on who I was last year, the year before, and man, it's like you just got to laugh at yourself and be like, wow, like I was really fucking stupid at age 24 or age 23. I guess I'm 24 right now. I'm 25. So
I always say
I'm stupid as fuck right now.
I always say he's older than me.
No, at age 23, I mean, totally different person. Age 22, totally different. That's a totally different Taylor. I mean, it's a completely different person. And thankfully, I've had a lot of great influences in my life that have really helped me to look at who I am objectively and try to help make myself better in a lot of ways. And I really just follow my interests, my passion. That's literally all that's all I'm ever going to do. I mean,
Now, for those viewers and listeners who heard that and they think, okay, I want that to happen over my next year, 2, 3 years, they might be wondering, and I'm actually curious, do you feel like this has been all like, your own doing and your own work, or do you think positive relationships, other people?
absolutely.
Okay.
It's a
I
combination.
know the answer to that for you, but I
So-
just wanted to make sure you clarify it because, I don't think no one can do anything completely alone. Everything alone.
It's a combination of things, and you really have to actively work for those things if you want to develop positive relationships, if you want to develop a healthier mindset in the gym or whatever towards your daily life, or not getting pissed off in traffic. You have to actively work.
It's a choice.
It's really hard, especially when you're in the moment when that dickhead cuts you off in traffic. It's really hard in the moment to be like, don't get
Yeah.
super pissed off. It's hard to take a step back and look at yourself in the third person. It really is, and it's been hard for me, of course, as well as anybody else. But
in the beginning for me too.
yeah, but that's like the ultimate superpower. Really, it's like one of them is if you can if you can really stop dead. Like X-Men, like Professor X, when he like freezes time, and you're just kind of looking at yourself in like the third person or whatever. If you can really do that, man, like you can really steer your life onto a better track.
And we'll talk about ways to get better at that, like tangible things you can do later on in the episode. But that's really interesting you said that. Wow, that's really cool. And I'm super happy to hear kind of your trajectory. Because just like the law of whatever, this you learn in science, in bio, or in physics or whatever, you're either gaining, you're growing, or you're dying. No energy, nothing just plateaus and stays the same way forever. So for you, I think it's really cool to see the trajectory. Obviously, there's been, I'm sure, some speed bumps where you're every 2 or 3 years in a row, you're feeling like you're just making better improvements in your everyday life, and then all of a sudden something sets you back. That's also called life. That happens.
Things are always going to happen. I mean, I was in a car accident earlier this year. Like obviously, thankfully, I wasn't injured. But you're always going to have setbacks. One thing I wanted to talk about with you in a little while, if you kind of give your story.
We can just do it right now. Let's go for it.
I really want to talk about. This has been on my mind for a while. I really want to talk about kids now. In high school and middle school, we didn't really have a lot of. I remember when I still had a Razor phone. You know, I had like a Motorola. Like,
Yeah, I
you
remember-
could chuck this thing like across a football field.
In
And it
middle
was
school and
like
high school,
indestructible.
during middle school and then our freshman year, I remember the coolest phone, like the coolest thing. This is before even like iTouches came out. Nothing was a touchscreen. Was the phone that's called a Sidekick. It looked like a normal like phone, you know, but then you could turn on its side and then slide it into two pieces. Oh, dude, you were such a cool guy if you had that.
Dude, you were a badass if you had a fucking black.
Well,
Berry.
first of all, if you had a phone in general. I didn't get my first phone until I was 8th grade, and I was like, I still had friends who didn't have it.
Yeah.
It wasn't a common thing. My cousin got his first phone when he was in 4th grade. Like, wait, what? like, dude. They've had iPads since they were 8. Nothing wrong with that.
Yeah.
It's just a different world. So go ahead, continue.
So, anyways, growing up now, I mean, we didn't. When I was in high school, and it's crazy.
Instagram
how
wasn't
much-
around.
That's what I was gonna say. Instagram wasn't around.
We graduated in
Facebook was
2013.
kind of around, but not like it is now with all the crazy advertising and shit.
Yeah,
It's
like,
insane
oh
now.
gosh. You know, I played high school sports, and if I played this day and age, the amount of pictures in post-game, pre-game, warm-ups, you know, flexing after practice, it would have gone way too far. I have like 2 photos from my entire 4 years of athletics in high school.
Yeah.
Because you just didn't have, you know, the easy ease of opportunity just to take something and kind of gloat or put it on the internet and the cloud, you know?
Yeah.
I went back and talked to the current Starting Mission East soccer team, and a couple of them started following me afterwards on Instagram. I looked through some of them just to see if this theory was true. Every post was just like an action shot in a game, you know, like all that. There's nothing wrong with that. It's just a different world. Like,
It's a totally different world.
there's like no documentation of Taylor and I in high school because there wasn't the opportunity for that. Facebook was around, but even then, it wasn't that like an everyday use for people, at least in our school. You know?
I don't think I had a smartphone until I didn't get my first smartphone. I got Samsung Galaxy S3 in 2013 when I was in college.
Wow.
Yeah. So I mean, in 2012 when we were in high school, I had like a flip phone. I had like a Motorola flip phone or some shit. But
So what was your
well, when you think about it, the amount of phones, like iPhone puts out a new phone every 6 months now. It's crazy, man.
It's crazy how many people upgrade their material things, their technology, their car, their clothes, but they don't upgrade their mind. They don't upgrade their health, their fitness, their nutrition. It's like, all right, you know, it's like what Tara and I were talking about before we started recording. The amount of people, every time a little noise comes from their phone or the computer, it's just, they immediately got to check and see who it is.
Oh,
Their
we're all,
phone
like,
is attached at the
that.
hip. I have made a point over the last couple of years to just get away from that at least 2 or 3 points during the day because, you know, technology is great. It's awesome.
100%. Yeah.
It's a very helpful tool. But if you become the tool and you let technology use you, that's your master. You know, if I don't have my phone's recording this right now, but you know, if my phone went off during this, or if I was someone else, you know, most people would probably check it out real quick if it wasn't on low volume or whatever. You're letting the phone use you. You know what I mean? So I think that was kind of helpful, and also the comparison was way less when we were in high school. Comparison is the thief of joy. People say that all the time. I know for me, I had my worst struggles with mental health, depression, anxiety, you know, self-harm, eating disorder, all that stuff when I was in high school. And there was multiple nights I would go home and just see posts of some of my friends like doing fun stuff together. I was just too down in the dumps to even leave my house, you know?
Yeah.
And that comparison started to really make me feel worse about myself. Nowadays, it's like you can't avoid it unless you don't have any of those things. You know, if you don't have an Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, now TikTok, even on a computer though, you can still see all of it.
Right.
So it's tough. It's tougher. And also, this day and age, I think there's so much more knowledge and just press about mental health, and the suicide rate is continuing to go up, which breaks my heart. I think part of it, I don't think I'm an avid believer in this, and I just know that part of it's because 2019, almost 2020, this has been the easiest time in history to be a human being. If Taylor and I thought, oh dude, you want some pizza? We could literally click a couple buttons on our phone and someone would deliver it to this room. Like, You don't even have to leave your house to get groceries. The adversity that people go through, the daily hardships, is so small now that when something does happen, they panic. It's chaos. They don't know how to handle it.
Right.
You know, so it's just such an easy.
And that goes
It's
back
so
to-
easy to exist these days and just
Yeah.
breathe. You know, whereas like 100 years ago, I mean, the stuff people had to do, the stuff in developing countries people have to do, the people have to walk 3 hours there to get water and 3 hours back. I mean, they're experiencing some tough stuff. I guarantee if they spill a little coffee on their shoe, if they have a little smudge on their shirt, they're not gonna panic and overreact like I used to do
Right.
when I was younger. Go ahead.
Yeah, that I was just gonna say that kind of goes back to traffic. Like you're so hyper aware of your situation. It's such an unnatural state to be in.
First of all, you have a car. You're driving on a fairly smooth, cemented road. You know, I've been in Haiti and parts of Mexico where it took us 2 hours to drive 2 miles because of how bumpy and just uneven the roads are. And your point of the traffic and getting mad if someone cuts you off, that doesn't even cross my mind anymore because I immediately go to, you don't know what that person is dealing with.
100%.
That person could be just a jerk and an evil, doesn't care about anyone. It's his world, we're all living it. That guy or girl could be trying to get to the hospital really quick to say their last goodbye to their family member. They could, you know, someone might be in an emergency. Maybe their daughter got in a crash and trying to drive quickly. You just never know. So I always give it the benefit of the doubt unless I know.
Yeah.
Even if they cuss at you or flip you off, you still don't know why they're doing that.
Right.
You know, so and getting angry is never getting. It's not going to fix. You're not magically going to be able to reverse the situation and have it not happen. It's happened. Move on.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like immediately build perspective. Did you almost die, or did a car crash could kill you? But someone, whatever, like cutting you off. Did you almost lose your life? No. Okay. Well, it's not worth stressing over. Move on. Like that's the extreme that I go to just now naturally.
Yeah.
And it goes along the lines that Taylor and I have talked about this a lot over the years. You just got to be kind to people. You know, you just never know.
Yeah.
The person in line with you at the grocery store in front of you or behind you, you never know what they're going through. That nice gesture of you saying, "Hey, how's it going?" or just smiling at them, that could literally save their life. And I don't say that to be cheesy because it's true. For me, when I was at San Diego State, there was, during my, really bad times, and I'll build up to this in a little bit, but, I was not in a good mindset, not in a good place, very just hopeless, whatever. I was kind of had that I just want to, end it, or self-harm urge, or don't care if I die urge. I was thinking about all this when I was walking to the stereotypical burrito shop in Southern California, and the guy at the cash register was so nice and just super happy, jovial, complimented on the shirt I was wearing. Said, "Damn, dude, you're taller, just really nice guy." The rest of the day I was fine. So you just I've met someone who was one of the very few people who jumped off the Golden Gate Bridge, tried to kill themselves, but they survived. The whole bus ride to the entrance of the Golden Gate Bridge, he was telling himself, he was crying, apparently. He said, if someone just asks me if I'm okay, or they say something nice, I promise myself I will not jump. No one said anything. They were looking at him weird. The bus, he was the last one off the bus. The bus driver was like, "Get off my bus, dude." The kid was crying. So, well,
there's such a disconnect.
Exactly.
In today's world,
so you just never know. Yeah.
People are constantly getting these when you like a photo, it's like you kind of get a dopamine hit.
You do. You don't kind of. You do.
Yeah. You get dopamine hits, and people are just so disconnected with each other. There's a lack of communication in today's world, which is really a bummer, and it's for sure causing at least some.
And guess what? Oh yeah, go ahead.
At least some of the issues that with mental health today, depression and things.
This would probably hit home if this was only teenagers and young adults listening to this, but there's other people besides them. It's okay. People, I know so many people in San Diego, guys and girls, who would be visibly upset or down in the dumps or stressed if they didn't get as many likes as their last post. What?
Yeah, that's crazy. I mean,
Sorry, the camera
when you
again.
really think about it, the likes on your post, they just
Like, so many people
They don't
post
understand.
stuff nowadays, like, so many people around our age post stuff to get that gratification or to
Exactly.
get that confirmation that they're cool or they're good.
Yeah.
Oh, man. I mean,
Man.
the only reason why I post stuff is because it's smart for my speaking and coaching
Exactly.
business and our podcast.
yeah, same for
Social
me.
media is a extremely good marketing tool.
It's great.
But, you know, I used to post stuff when I first got into Instagram my freshman year in college in 2013. I used to post workout videos of me like PRing something or that was
Yeah.
like good shots of all the muscle I had. And I would feel way better about myself when I got the positive
Yeah.
comments and the hundreds of likes. And then the ones that I didn't, I felt just bad about myself. Like, what? You got to be okay with yourself first, because guess what? You're the only person who's living with your own thoughts 24/7. The most important conversation you can have is the one with yourself, because you're with you all day.
Yeah.
You know, so there's too many people who need that confirmation. And, you know, just because you have 3 likes on a post and 5 followers, whereas someone else has 1 million, it doesn't make them a better person, doesn't make them anything. It just means that, you know, you got to get better with your own standpoint and viewpoint of yourself. For me, I know for the longest time, I was my biggest bully. I didn't really get bullied growing up.
Yeah.
But the shit I said to myself, I wouldn't wish that on my worst enemy, you know? I don't know about you, but were you ever, like, consistently hard on yourself? Or were you just kind of like,
yeah. I want to touch on the social media thing too. It's like, obviously my
Yeah, go ahead.
my Instagram it's purely my own business. It's purely, I enjoy posting videos of workouts. I love that. I don't care if I get likes or not. I don't give a shit. It just looks cool. Not that it looks cool, but it's fun for me. It's fun to do that stuff.
it's going to be there forever, too.
And if somebody's like, dude, did that core workout, or I did that workout and that's badass, I'm like, oh, that's cool, awesome, I helped somebody. That's why I like doing it. I enjoy just like this podcast. We aim to help people. That's literally it. So
Yeah, it's such a rewarding feeling. I feel so lucky when I get the people who message me and say, you know, they either say, hey, I think it's really great what you're doing. Can you help me with this? Or they just say, hey, you know what I mean? Just the people that are positively impacted by stuff that we do and as humans do, that's the best, most
It goes
rewarding
back,
feeling. It's fulfilling, and that makes you realize that what you're doing is fulfilling.
yeah, it's like, I get 3 likes on a video or whatever of a workout, and I get a couple people, and 2 of those people do the workout. Great, they did a workout. They bettered themselves. That's what's important, right? So
And that's exactly why Taylor and I are doing this podcast. It's not for anything besides we have developed and learned and, you know, mastered so
we
many
love
things
doing
over the years
this.
with our health. You know, we know for a fact if people can hear more about this stuff, it can really help them. And I'll really quickly kind of get into my history. And I could talk about my 25-year journey for the next 5 hours. It's not worth it right now. What is worth it though is I'll tell you kind of the biggest things that I've been diagnosed with or struggled with, and then where I'm at now, and that will hopefully help you guys realize that anyone can become happier, healthier, eat better, move more. I mean, it's hard for people who don't know Taylor and I, and you might initially think like, oh, these guys have never had it really bad. First of all, that's stinking thinking. I wouldn't think that, but
we recognize that.
correct. But to be honest, for me, ever since I can remember, I had very bad anxiety. Kindergarten, first grade, tests, anything. I developed perfectionism really young. I remember in kindergarten, we played kickball, and the way my elementary school was set up was the kindergarten playground was where a home plate was facing the wall and the school roof, like, I don't know, 30 yards away or whatever, 25, 20 yards. And I remember, like, the first week of school, I hit a home run because I hit the kickball over the wall on top of the school and over the roof. And I got so much, like, praise for that from my classmates, like, oh, dude, hell yeah, dude, you're cool, man, awesome. And I just remember that kind of triggered something in me, like, all right, I'm known as the guy who's the best at that. Now I need to be the best at everything. I gotta be perfect. That was a tough way to grow up with that kind of mentality. But also, eventually the perfectionism led to really bad anxiety because I had performance anxiety about getting perfect grades, perfect everything. The anxiety eventually led to severe stress. The stress led to severe depression. I started taking psych meds when I was a sophomore in high school. I was 14, people. Like, what? That's obviously, if I go back and do it again, I would change that. But at the time, I didn't know any better. My parents didn't know any better. Most of the medical field didn't really know any better.
Right.
And I think it's great if some people do that stuff and it helps them. But I was put on so many different things at 14 years old. It made things worse in a lot of ways. But so really bad depression. And then I lost control of all of my emotions, my attitude, everything. The only thing I could control was what I put in my mouth, what I ate and what I drank. So naturally, as a perfectionist, I got very perfectionistic about that. I got so, I only ate raw whole foods, nothing out of a wrapper, very minimal food, like, because I had body dysmorphia as well. You know, my nickname growing up was Six Pack Jack and with my soccer teams and stuff, but I always thought that was funny because I saw a fat person in the mirror. So I I would eat an apple for breakfast, banana for lunch, and then just a bunch of water at dinner. And it's funny because it was me, but I wouldn't laugh at that for someone else. But the point is, I developed orthorexia, which is a very specific type of eating disorder that means you kind of have an obsession for health. So if I ate anything that in my mind was unhealthy, I would get very stressed, panicky, felt like the world was coming to an end. It was crazy. So then I got to the point with the eating disorder and depression and stuff, and naturally the suicidal thoughts came in, the self-harm. Man, I don't talk about this in all my speeches because about half my speeches are at educational, high schools or middle schools or colleges. But yeah, I mean, I remember my junior and senior year in high school, I started self-harming when I was a junior, and people didn't realize that though. I was the captain of the varsity soccer team. I could put on a mask most of the day, and I'm sure you've had to do that too, Taylor, where on your deepest days, you don't really want to, I never wanted to be like a burden to people.
Right.
So it was draining because I would go to school and act like everything's great, smile, go home and basically just like cry in my room and die,
Right.
just emotionally and mentally. So I ended up dropping out of high school my junior year, went to this rehab facility in Wisconsin, turned my life around to an extent, came back in summer school, got back, caught up. My senior year was really great, graduated high school and everything, straight A's, and did my best athletically as well because I just didn't have that perfectionistic pressure. And then along the ways, those things were like the personal mental health struggles, but there's things along my life that contribute to it. Ever since, I had 2 or 3 surgeries at a week old for my kidneys, my ureters, and my bladder. My mom has always told me the day I was born, the doctors said that I might have to wear a diaper the rest of my life. Like I was that messed up, like with my urinary system. So that was kind of just funny looking back on it because that was just the starting point of just one thing after another. I mean, I had my first really bad concussion I had to be hospitalized with, and just really bad symptoms when I was in first grade. I had black eyes in like every photo, every month going to school. The school staff used to call my parents and like interrogate them because they thought they were beating me up, but it was really just me, wrong place, wrong time during sports. And then the really bad injuries were, when I was in 8th grade, I broke my left foot, was on crutches and a cast for 3 months. The day after it healed, broke it again. So my 8th grade year, I was on crutches with a cast for every part of the school year except for 1 month. And when you're in 8th grade, I don't care if you're a guy or girl, most of the time you and your friends are active. That's what you do for fun. You play video games and stuff, but you're also shooting hoops, doing, being active, playing with your teammates. Well, all of that was taken away from me. So I became lonelier and kind of an outcast. And then from there, it just continued. I got compartment syndrome on my right thigh when I was a sophomore. So I have a foot-long scar on my right thigh, and they almost had to amputate my leg if it got to a certain extent because, we can explain compartments another time, but if you wait too long, the circulation and your muscles start to die, and then that can be very poisonous to the rest of your muscles, so you have to amputate the leg. Luckily, they caught it in time. I got the surgery, but that took over a year to recover from. What else? What other injuries? Basically everything except for my knees. I broke my nose 3 times. I have screws in my left shoulder, screws in my left hip, reconstructive left shoulder surgery. I tore everything you could tear in there. Labrum, biceps tendon completely. I had Popeye arm, tore my rotator cuff, my hip. I had a fracture in my femur, and then at the ball and socket joint, and then I had really bad torn labrum. That was shitty. I remember Taylor visiting me in the hospital for that.
That's right.
What else? Oh, and then the last 2 years, starting on September 20th of 2017, the day I turned 23, that was the start of a very intense battle with a chronic illness. I got diagnosed with stage 3 CKD, stage 3 chronic kidney disease. I had from that point in 2017 until 3 months ago, so that's a 24-month period, 27-month period. There was I think it was 720 days from that point until 3 months ago. Out of those 720 days, I was in the hospital over 510 of those days. I had 12 surgeries, which led up to over 45 hours of anesthesia. I had 12 procedures, which were just 1 hour surgeries, but I never had to stay the night, so that's why I call them procedures. I had over 50 infections. I had sepsis 7 times, septic shock 3 times when I was in the ICU, and most people die from that, so I feel so lucky.
Yeah.
I mean, it was just great. It's a blessing to get through that, because doctors' eyes were like silver dollars, and they literally said, dude, we're gonna try to turn this around, but it's not looking too great. And they didn't ever literally say you're gonna die, because no one says that to a young adult. But I'm not dumb. I could read between the lines, and I knew what was happening. I knew what septic shock was. And then the last thing with that whole thing was, for 17 months, so a year and a half, I had a suprapubic tube that went through into my bladder, and it was attached to a bag that was pinned to my underwear. I had a Foley catheter for 6 months, which was just a catheter in your you-know-what. That was so comfortable and amazing. And then for 17 months, I had nephrostomy tubes in each of my kidneys. So they stick the tube through your back, into your muscle, into your kidney, and it stays there. And that drained fluid into a bag attached to my underwear for 17 months, stitched to my back. Terrible, getting replaced every 2 months. The point is, all that adversity, and now the way I'm living now is, I've never been happier. Dude, I just love living, man,
Yeah.
And the point that I think is really interesting for people listening is, up until 22, everything that went wrong in my life made me worse and worse, made me more depressed, more stressed. Halfway through, about 3 months before my 23rd birthday, when I got really bad kidney disease and all my ureters and bladder surgeries, I kind of realized, no one said anything to me, in Taylor's life, no one came and said, hey, look back on this, you can grow from that. It just kind of came to me, and I'm like, and I actually looked at people, I'm like, why is there people who have no limbs, who just got back from, the war in Iraq or Afghanistan, and they are so happy spreading positive messages. And I knew some of these people living in San Diego, and so why are they like that, but I get more miserable every time adversity or physical trauma happens? So I just realized, I'm just going to focus on the things I can control. And I think this is a really important thing that we can end with. The amount of people that stress, have anxiety, fear, angry about stuff they can't control is insane. Just to be clarified, as human beings, Taylor and I, we can only control our own attitude and actions. That is it. The amount of people who stress about other people in their life or events that they have zero control over doing, it's a waste of your time and energy. So for me, my health was out of my control. I did everything the doctor said, and I was still getting sicker. So I just focused on my attitude and actions. As a teammate, I stressed so much and had so much anxiety about my teammates doing better. I just focused on myself. So when I did that, and when I also decided to keep the privileges of feeling happier and unhappy to myself, my life changed forever. And I think Taylor does a good job of that too. And what I meant by that, and this is the last thing we'll say today, is, I don't let what anyone does or that any event happens during my day dictate my emotions, because that's you just being a slave and a victim to your circumstances. That's the ultimate form of giving power to someone or something else. So on top of that, we just hope you guys really, got stuff out of this episode. We're gonna just expand on this even more on the next mental health episode. Any thoughts, Taylor? We're actually gonna record another minute for those watching. This is how candid we are.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So, yeah, we hope you guys can really take something away from this episode. We obviously talked a lot about our kind of backstories, overcoming adversity. I think is kind of the theme of this episode. We have lots more to talk about, some different things you guys can implement in your day. We won't talk about that on today's episode, of course, but
Yeah, we'll get into it. And I think one thing that for the people who've listened to the first 3 episodes or who might in a couple of months discover this podcast and listen to them, it's interesting. Our fitness episode, Taylor and I have a fairly similar fitness journey. When it comes to nutrition, he and I couldn't be more different,
yeah,
which I think is super important and cool for the audience because not everyone's going to resonate with how I, eat and have to eat right now with my health, and not everyone's going to resonate with how Taylor
absolutely.
treats nutrition. And the same thing with this mental health episode. I come from the extreme of someone who's had to be hospitalized, a suicide attempt, diagnosed with depression, you name it.
Yeah.
Whereas Taylor's never necessarily had those stuck in stone diagnoses, but he's had stress, anxiety, and trauma in his life like any other 24-year-old human or anyone in general. So, and the point is Taylor has become better instead of bitter from his circumstances and his traumas. Obviously, he wasn't like that from the get-go.
No.
I definitely wasn't either. Like I said, up until my, up until 22, every little thing that happened made me more stressed, more depressed, more angry, more frustrated. It was bad. Once I started to click and realize, it's just a choice. Anything that happens to you, you can choose to be joyful or be miserable. Do you,
Absolutely.
Going outside in the cold right now, I can either choose to experience that full of misery or full of joy. How lucky are we?
It's true.
There's no one shooting at us. We live
Yeah.
so it's a choice. And this is what Taylor said a little bit in the beginning too, is it just comes down to that. You guys tend to forget, and a lot of humans tend to forget that you have the ability to change. No one needs to do it for you. It's a simple choice. And you just gotta keep doing it. Like we say on our kind of motto on our Instagram for the podcast is decide, commit, and act. And it's easy to forget though. Like Taylor said, you're not great at something the first time you do it. For me, I had to set reminders on my phone for 6 months until I started to become a habit. So when it comes to traffic, I constantly, every 2 hours during the day said, alarm to go off on my phone and ask myself, how'd you deal with the traffic? Did you deal with it miserably or joyfully?
Yeah.
And now I just don't even need that,
Right.
So you just got to continue to practice
Exactly.
it. But any famous last words before?
Yeah, I think that was a great episode.
Yeah, dude. And I hope it's not too overwhelming. That's why I think this is why we discussed we want to break down the episodes to focusing on each individual aspect of the triad of health.
Absolutely.
So what are we going to talk about next week?
Absolutely, yeah. We're going to talk about all sorts of different tactics you guys can use to, stay on top of your day, and just overall make your life that much more productive.
Yeah, and I think it's cool is instead of having to wait for the next mental health episode, I think it'd be cool if you and I, even nutritionally and fitness wise, started posting more stories on the podcast Instagram and our own Instagrams.
Absolutely.
Our stuff that we have that has helped us that we think could be valuable to other people. Taylor, what's your Instagram for those people who only know the podcast?
Yeah.
What's your Instagram?
Sure, my Instagram is tailored, TAYLORED_SC, tailored SC.
And Taylor doesn't only post stuff for his fitness and coaching business. He has stuff on nutrition, just thoughts for the day. So it's a little bit of everything.
Yeah.
And then mine is my Instagram is I am spelled out IAM. So it's I am Jack Cernett. My name's in all the podcast stuff, but Cernett is spelled SERNETT. That's the same as my TikTok, my Facebook, and my Twitter. My Facebook's just my name, but we put a lot of gyms out there, and I think we should keep doing that because
Absolutely.
there's a lot we could have talked about today on this episode. And like Taylor was saying, things that people can do now, tangible things to start improving their mental and emotional health. We're gonna dive into that really strong the next mental health episode. But in the time being, keep a lookout. Taylor and I will post those stories here and there. And same with the nutrition and the fitness. So next week, we're gonna get back to fitness for the next episode?
Fitness next week. So yeah, we'll see you guys next week. We hope you guys enjoyed this episode. Yeah, that was fucking great.
Yeah, stay strong, decide, act, commit.
Boom.
Boom.
See you guys.
Oh shit.
That was good.
That was good, dude.
That's good.
Wait.